I just put a note there on DOM gas pricing in WA. The actual gas industry got started by guaranteeing big gas users a very low cost of gas for like 20 years. These guys got $1 a gigajoule gas for 20 years. Well, that 20 years ran out just recently, and when the price went up closer to that, there was a big uproar, but the government found in favour of the producers, and that's the sort of the numbers they're having to pay. Certainly on the world stage, and definitely nationally, is while Australia's got trillions of cubic feet of gas offshore and onshore now, it's getting this exposure to the LNG industry is what's seen as being able to drive the price up, especially on that east coast. On the east coast, because they're competing with brown coal, etc., there's a big push now to get an LNG plant there so they can start getting some competitive tension from the Asian buyers and the international buyers for that LNG. You can see on this list here, these two here are operational. That's the Northwest Shelf and one in Darwin. They're the only operational LNG plants. There's one being built, an additional one for Woodside. And recently, the Gorgon plant received a final investment decision, and they've started building that project. That's a $43 billion project, which for me to get my head around was it's a step change bigger than anything ever built in Australia before. And that's happening up here on the Northwest Shelf too. All these other projects, PNG LNG is just PNG in the north, and these other conventional plays are all real projects that are trying to get off the ground. They're all producing millions of tonne of LNG, but the world market of uncontracted LNG is only limited as well. It's about 70 million tonnes per annum, and we're up against countries like Qatar who are bringing on huge amounts of production now. However, on the east coast is the new coal bed methane LNG. There were 4 main projects: Santos with their GLNG, Arrow Energy with their Gladstone LNG. They recently got bought out by Shell, basically to warehouse the gas, so their project's delayed. Origin Energy and ConocoPhillips, their LNG plant, and then BG QGC, their LNG plant. And these companies here are trying to drive up that gas price on the east coast of Australia. And as such, there's not a lot of gas development happening because people with the gas are trying to get more of that price they would get if they went to LNG. And this graph here sort of illustrates the influence of this gas drive. So the 10-year historic average, it's somewhat driven up by the price of oil and the availability of the gas. Carbon-driven fuel switching, so once emissions trading becomes more prevalent and the government signs up to it, they expect the only way that we can displace coal is with natural gas. Australia's got just about the most uranium in the world, but they will not have a nuclear power station. And they won't even talk about it at this stage. So gas is the fuel of choice for the next transition. And then here, to actually get that demand for that gas, LNG. Let's get some international players that have got lots of people that want this gas and are prepared to pay for it. Just a little bit about what's going on in the economy and what has been going on. We have no idea where the future's going to go. You can see with all of those LNG projects that have been tabled, we cannot do that with our workforce that we currently have. There's just too much of it. And during the last boom we had, 2004 to 2008, it was quite insane. Graduate engineers were getting pay rises every 3 months. Tradesmen doubled in their wages. Housing prices doubled. You would turn up to a house for sale, and when you put your offer in, it's how much above the asking price before they'll even talk to you. A really crazy world, which did end in 2008, as the world did, with that free run of money. However, there's a relatively educated and skilled workforce, generally across the population, and the low unemployment rates equal a relatively high cost of labour. Interestingly, you don't want the unemployment rate to be too low, or suddenly you're finding bad service at the restaurant, Or if you go there to get your hair cut, you find all the hairdressers are up north working on the mines. So that's somewhat stabilised, but what we had to do with the previous boom is pull in a lot of overseas workers and on 457 visas. And that became a good place for people to find opportunity there in Australia. Interest rates, I guess, is a good barometer of how the economy is going. You'll sort of see here that there was a big a big dip in 2008. Again, the Australian government's reaction to the global financial crisis was to cut the cash rate and keep money flowing through the economy. And to a large extent, Australia did weather the storm of the GFC quite well. But here recently, you will see that differing to a number of other economies around the world at the moment, the cash rate is going back up, and that's there to try and moderate inflation. So again, the economy is starting to pick up a little bit of speed, starting to get a little bit out of control inflationary-wise. They're just trying to turn the taps back with the interest rates. And commodities. Commodities is what's really driving Australia. The LNG exports is one story, but the other part of it is what's in the ground for mining. Iron ore, coal, uranium, and as you can see here, again, after the big dip, the commodities metals index has been growing up rapidly. So again, the commodities pricing are going up. That drives investment, that drives demand for gas, and it feeds the whole economy. So one of my probably pet topics at the moment is the Australian government impacts. So there was a new change of government back in 2007, and that imparted a lot of major industrial relations changes, a lot more empowerment to the unions, changing to agreements that the workers signed up, but it typically didn't impact industry too much. Again, the workforce is at a mature enough level, at a skill level where there's enough jobs that it doesn't cause much in the way of strikes and issues like that over treatment. The only thing that might cause strikes if living conditions changed or the food was bad, sort of the typical stuff. But in 2008, the government removed the exemption on excise exemption from condensate. That was sort of a nice little carrot to get people to produce gas fields and oil fields, because the condensate could be taken tax effectively, it could be used to operate the plant. That was removed in 2008, and it was a little bit of a scare of potential sovereign risk in an otherwise stable country, but it did fly through and didn't really upset too much of the economy. Kyoto Protocol was signed on, and there was a commitment initially made to the carbon tax introduction. And as soon as the government got in and sort of worked out how much it was going to cost the economy, as well as what had happened in 2008 with the global financial community, it's been put on hold. How long for, we don't know. And whether this government makes it through to the next round of elections will impact that as well.